Association for Dialogue and Affirmation of Monotheism is presenting to you next video.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to today's podcast. We are delighted to have our guest, Refet Dehari. He was once in our podcast for the looking at the stars and the universe. So we will share his unique insight on the intersection of astronomy and the Holy Quran. Refet, he encountered a perspective of the universe distance grounded in his teaching of the Quran, a viewpoint seldom discussed on contemporary scientific discourse. So Refet's presentations will bring the gap between science and religion, emphasizing that the Quran, which is revealed 1,400 years ago, contains profound truth about the cosmos. I hope we will get much from him today. And our first question will be his personal background. Can you, Refet, share your journey into exploring the relationship between Quran and astronomy?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
So,
First, I want to thank you for Alhamdulillah, and thank you personally for inviting me in this program.
you're welcome.
You know, honestly, so much to talk. Sometimes you don't know where to begin. You know, as far as astronomy and Islam, is if you read the Quran, you find so many verses talking about the sun, the moon, stars, the creation of heavens and earth, and even get some details, like we decorated the first layer with stars, and makes you think more deeper about cosmology and all that. And it's like, it's amazing, and sadly, people, don't reflect much, when they read, and they don't really get into to see, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks so much, why he mentions so much, and people don't realize sometimes just by mentioning the sun itself, just by mentioning the moon, just by mentioning the calculation of the moon, all that actually is astronomy itself. It's not just a story, just simple stuff. It makes you, and I tell people often, that, Quran is not the book of the science to teach you the science, but definitely it is a book to insist you in science, to invite you in science. And that's why we all know that the golden age did exist, and all that was inspired by the Quran, basically, by these verses, in Quran, they look so simple, like talks, things like, creation of heavens and earth, and it sounds simple, but you can get so much in details, which inshallah we might get in details later on, down the road as we have questions here.
Did you first discover astronomy, or you find the Quran?
Like I mentioned before, in the other program, it kind of was born with me, because as a child, I loved religion itself. As a child, I loved astronomy itself. I didn't even know the term astronomy as a child. I just kept asking my mom, about the stars, and which means, it kind of was.
What was your first
parallel.
impression? What was your first impression when because you liked very much astronomy, like you already told us? What was your first impression when you read about, for example, some verses in the Quran? And were you like amazed, or you just stopped there and it was like?
Honestly, it wasn't just impression, it was more like understanding myself how wrong I was. For example, I wanna show others, who don't believe even in Quran much, how mistakenly we can misunderstand the Quran and think, like, oh, something is not completely, how I want it and how it fits in my logic and all that. For example, first time in Albanian language was written in 1985, the first translation in Albanian language, the Quran. And when back then, I now remember, I'm old enough, I reached the communism time in Yugoslavia,
manifest to them that this, the
you know,
Quran,
that
is the
sad negative mentality we had still affected even me. When I read, you know, the story of the Lut alayhi salam, when I read in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, one area mentioned, I send them, you know, to punish them, I send them a fire from the sky. Another area it says I send them rocks from the sky.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had a hard time to believe that part. Because to me, in my logic, because I didn't know anything about astronomy, it did not make any sense. Because all I know from the sky comes you know, we have clouds and we have
Yeah.
comes you know, like the rain or snow. And to me, it just didn't fit right, you know, like why, you know, why is talking like that? So which means when I got in the United States and I started meeting, you know, clubs and started learning about astronomy, then I found out, you know, like the heaven is loaded with rocks. And you know, even before that, when those you know, meteors used to hit, you know, in the atmosphere, I used to think they were actually stars itself. That's how I didn't know much about astronomy. When I started learning those things, you know, those clubs and from friends and here there, then I understood that I was wrong the way I believed the Quran, which means this is like a good lesson for everybody. You know, just believe it and take it as it is, because we don't know more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You
Yeah.
just take it, but then later on, if you understand it, good. If you don't understand it, don't blame the Quran. Try to blame ourselves. And from then on, I go like, you know, no matter what the Quran says, no matter if it fits my logic or not, I'll just believe it. And then if the science down the road will show me, you know, like what the Quran meant, fine, good, I'll take it. If it doesn't show me, I'm not gonna blame the Quran because the science didn't reach there yet. We're not blaming the science either, but the science maybe did not reach yet. So that's why we just, you know, do things with a reserve, with a just be, you know, better sure than safe than sorry. You know how we say that word.
So in the Quran, we have some verses which mention about the creation and the world. And one of them is like Quran chapter 38, 87, 98, which says the Quran is indeed a reminder to the whole world, and you will surely know the truth of its information after a time. Also in Surah Fussilet 41:53, we will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this Quran is the truth. How you emphasize this in your knowledge?
You know, I don't want to be mean, but I had a wish. And I tell some friends sometimes who are involved in the science, and go like, you know, even the scientists sometimes need to be more fair. If they feel Quran is speaking the truth, they should accept it. They should not put it on the side just because it's Islam, because had some political bad reputation and all that. You know, they should be honest, and they should accept it, as long as they think it's true and as long as they believe it. We're not forcing them to believe something what they don't believe it, you know, what they don't feel it right. But something, if they feel it in their heart, you know, there's no way they can run away from the facts, then they should accept it. And I've been teasing them sometimes. I go like, you know, by right, maybe that verse of the Quran where it says, you know, we created heavens and earth and we expanding it. Maybe that should be an entry of the NASA. Just because, you know, it's a verse that is no way a human being 1400 years ago would know about it. Is no way. And just as a respect for the Quran and for the science itself, like something they knew before anybody knew 1400 years ago, to be somewhere hanging in the NASA area. Not just an entry, but anywhere, just for the respect, for the honesty of this towards the science, between the science and Islam or any religion. Any religion would have that amazing fact, we should accept it. We should be like, wow, you know, that is no way a human being can know about it. And look at what the Quran says. You know, the universe is expanded, which don't take me from words, but when did we learn that the universe is expanding? Not a long time ago. Around 1920, 1928, between that
26,
time.
29. 29, Hubble telescope.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
basically,
do you
measure the
emphasize the ayah which I will read? And we created the heavens with the energy, some translate, with power, and we are indeed expanding it. Azaria 51:47. So do you think this is the most important verse which should people from the scientists fella which should think about this, or the one which is we created the universe and unique and then we separated? For example, there are several ayahs which when we mention it, it's almost a scientific science fact. It's not something which is
You cannot run away from it.
they
even if you
cannot
want.
run away. So did you have experience with this presenting to some scientists?
You know, I had an Astromart as a website. I used to go over there, shop a lot, you know, buying telescopes. But they had a forum, a religion forum, which you can, you know, you can mix it with the science as well.
Yeah.
And it seems like, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, being fair about it. And when I get, you know, like chatting back and forth until, you know, they think, you know, they got the right point, and until I give them this fact, and then they become silent. They don't even
Do they
respond back,
believe in
which-
Big
that's
Bang
what gets me,
theory?
you know?
Do they believe
that?
in Big Bang theory?
Oh, actually, most of them do, of course. But actually, I had a friend, you know, he was atheist. And he told me that, you know, I believe a rock was a rock and will be a rock forever. But of course, he still believes, you know, the changes in the universe, you know, like the star can be reborn and all that. It wasn't like, you know, like to know about that, but he still believed, like, you know, like nothing was, you know, began. And I mentioned to him the Big Bang, you know, the theory of the Big Bang. And he said, you know, like, no, I don't believe in that. So I was shocked, actually, after the theory of Big Bang came, you know, a part of it, astronomy, and still hearing the person not believing in Big Bang, you know, I was actually kind of shocked about it. And then I didn't even know where to go with a person to continue talking religion, because with the Big Bang, we had it more easy to connect it into a religion, you know, because that way we can understand, you know, like something had a beginning. And of course, you know, something had to be without a beginning in order to begin something. Otherwise, it would not make any sense, you know, and any other logics when you think about it, you know. And so, honestly, I haven't heard a single person to be involved in astronomy and to be fair with me and to say, you know, like, wow, that's amazing, you know, like you're saying that. I don't know how true it is, but at least to say, like, you know, it's amazing how that can be possible 1400 years ago, somebody to mention expanded in the universe.